What is the strangest thing you've seen that you cannot explain? I sneezed my back into place after being couch bound for nearly a year and a half. Within 15 minutes it felt like that year and a half was a distant memory. Me and a buddy were at his house watching TV and some person on the screen was eating a strawberry. I don't really care for them, but it looked good and I asked if, by chance, he had any strawberries in the house. He almost laughed at me. We were two 20-year-olds with a higher chance of beer or mac and cheese or Fruit Loops than strawberries. About 20 minutes later, there's a knock at the door and he goes to answer it. He yells out to me to come see something. His mom is standing at the door with one of those low-cut boxes with a bunch of strawberries. He said, "Tell Aunt Kim what you said." She looks a little strange and says, "I was driving home and there was a guy selling strawberries out of the back of his truck and I thought, I bet David and his friends would like some strawberries." My buddy says, "Well, you blew it. We all have one wish and you wasted yours on strawberries." I saw a man walk down the sidewalk and stop at one of the free newspaper stands. Open it and pull out a spatula. Then turn around and walk back the other direction. If he was homeless it would have made sense. But the man was dressed in clean and pressed business casual and had perfect hair and a clean shave. My dad had a really complicated case of thrombosis. It was bad that only 2 hospitals in the country were equipped to handle it. Long story short, he was in intensive care and had to be airlifted to the most famous hospital in Brazil. This process took the whole night. I remember my mom telling me at 6 AM that he was stable and the visitation time would be like 7 hours away. So I went to get some sleep. I don't remember specific details. Just a very obvious loving figure that sounded just like my grandpa, his dad, already deceased, telling me to relax. It was not my father's time. When visiting time came, due to my good mood and spirit, my dad asked me if I understood what he had. Since Doc told us his chances of recovery were slim. Then I told him about the dream. He cried and hugged me. He spent over 10 days in ICU and over a month in recovery, but is healthy and happy today. Never had my grandpa, or anyone else, visit me, before or since. For about 10 years a man would call my home, ask for me, and then ask me if my feet were ticklish. This was 30 or so years ago, no caller ID or anything like that. I would engage him if my family was home. If I said my feet were ticklish, he'd ask me to ask the person sitting closest to me to tickle them. He always hung up before we could ask questions to figure him out. Sometimes he'd get me on a payphone. Like, I'd be walking home from school and a payphone would ring. It was always him. Still don't know who it was. That's absolutely horrifying. Didn't happen to me but my mom. She was going through a tough patch, not making a lot of money. Single mom with 2 kids. Was stressed over bills but had just enough to cover them. Unfortunately it left us with no money. She was a hard worker and would do multiple shifts at the hospital. Still, it was hard this particular month. She was sweeping and prayed for help. As she turned around to empty the dustbin into the trash, there was a crisp $100 bill perfectly laying on top of the filled trash can. No one lived at our house with us. She was never able to explain it. A week before my twin brother died, I was in the passenger side of the car and an awful thought with visuals that popped in my mind. I was at his house and it was empty. His door was shut, but I had an overwhelming feeling he was no longer alive. It was the first time I've cried over just a thought. I also had him visit me in a dream after and ask where he was, and he didn't know he was dead yet. I showed him his death certificate and all the paperwork my mom was filling out. I can't explain it, but seeing that a week ahead helped me process his death better than my siblings and mom. His 10 years is coming up in March and I've been trying to dream about him, no luck. My family used to travel between Utah and Nevada a few times a year when I was growing up. We often saw wildlife on the side of the road or crossing the road. There's one thing that still baffles all of us, though. It was in the middle of the day, on a long, hot, empty stretch of road. I was a teen. Myself, my mom, and a couple of my siblings saw something scurry across the road. It looked like a huge egg, the size of an ostrich egg. Maybe larger, with two skinny legs and feet poking out the bottom of it. We cannot figure out what it possibly could have been. It was a baby ostrich that only broke the legs out of the egg. Oh. Shoot. I have one. When I was a kid I was awfully sick at one point, completely bedridden. I was super hungry or something, so I wanted to go get my mom. So I fell out of bed, but I couldn't move after that. I was just sorta worming around in agony. Until 4. I want to say hippies. Tie-dye shirts. Baggy bell-bottom pants. Long hair. They just appeared in my room and I instinctively knew they were in a band. One of them was like, "Yo. Dude. Your mom's asleep. Want us to go get her?" So I just mutely nodded. They disappeared. And a few minutes later my mom came up and checked on me. I love the idea of guardian angel hippies. Like they dropped a F-ton of acid at a Grateful Dead show and became time traveling spirits that would go around helping kids in need. Years ago, when my wife was pregnant with our second child and about to give birth, my mom came to stay with us for a few days to help take care of our oldest child. One early evening mom asked for a pen, paper and an envelope. When I gave them to her she wrote on the paper, sealed it in the envelope and gave it to me, saying, "Put this in your pocket and don't open it. You'll know when," she said. 30 minutes later my wife announced it was time to go to the hospital. She was in labor. So we did, and about 9 hours later our second daughter was born at 3:45 am. She weighed 8 pounds, 11 ounces and was 20 inches long. This being pre-cell phone days. I called my mom from the hospital to tell her the news. She answered the phone and immediately said, "Before you say anything, open the envelope." I did. It said, "Girl 3:45 am, 8 pounds, 11 ounces, 20 inches. I kept that paper for years. When my mom died, I went to our documents safe where we kept it, but it was gone. I'm sorry to say, but your mum was a witch, Mayo. Living in a dorm. No roommate. Night before 2-hour open book final. I put my book in the middle of the floor so I'll stumble over it on the way out. The floor has nothing else on it. In the morning it's gone. I look all over the room. Can't find it. I think I'm hysterically blind. So I feel over every inch of the floor with my hands. Nothing. I go get a cup of coffee and come back. Still nothing. By now there's only 1 hour for the test. I go anyway and do the best I can. Naturally when I get back the book is in the middle of the floor exactly where I put it. Probably a prank. But how? I'm not that heavy a sleeper. Nobody took credit for it. Not exactly seen, but it's strange. I was around 6 and on Wednesday evening I went to bed. I woke up and it was Friday. I remember asking my mom, why is it Friday when yesterday it was Wednesday? She said yesterday was Thursday. Obviously. I asked her what I did on Thursday because the last thing I remember is going to sleep on Wednesday. She named some activities and I remembered none of that. I never found out why I don't remember the Thursday. I think this is just a coincidence, but it's weird nonetheless. I can summon, I don't know a better word for it, a boy to message me. It's one specific boy who was a close friend when we were 12-13. Once we left to go to high school, we kinda lost touch. I think about messaging him sometimes and usually within 10 minutes I'll get a message from him. It's really bizarre and it only happens with this one dude. Once we didn't talk for a year and then he messaged me randomly after I thought about reaching out. I asked him why he messaged and he said that he felt a weird feeling wash over him and it's like it pushed him to message me. It's really bizarre. Although probably just a coincidence. Doing some door-to-door work. I knocked onto a house I'd only driven past in a city on the other side of the world from where I grew up. As I looked around the deck I was standing on, I noticed a particular window had a view through another window. I distinctly remembered all the details of what was outside the second window, even though I had never before seen it in my life. As the door opened, The lady standing at it gave a bewildered face that I must have mirrored. The first thing she says is, "I know you. I promise." There is no way our paths had previously crossed. As we got to talking, I was sharing a personal story, of which she finished the last details for me. I was stunned. And she said, "I'm sure you've told me that before." I was tripping out and ended coming back to the house a few times to just chat and see where or if anyone we both knew had crossed paths. To this day I still can't explain it. I saw a beer bottle dropped from a 13th floor window into bricks and it bounced. I was driving away from a gas station. Out of nowhere a guy in a suit comes running up to my minivan and starts yanking the door. As if he knew me. He began pleading, "Simon, let me in." Luckily my doors were locked. I asked him who the hell he was through my window. He looked genuinely surprised that I wouldn't let him in. After I refused to let him in, his facial expression inverted, as if he just realized something horrible. He let go of my car, said something to the effect of, "You're one of them, aren't you?" Then he ran away behind the gas station and into the woods. Full suit and tie. Nice shoes. Extremely frantic in nature. Zero explanation. I'm praying it was some elaborate troll or meth or something. Because the look in that man's eyes was pure terror when I didn't let him in. It wasn't what I saw so much as felt. I was on my way to Petersburg, a small island in Alaska, but the runway was too foggy so I had to stay in Juneau at a hotel for the night. Anyway, the next morning I was sleeping and had my hand dangling in between the bed and the wall, and I swear on everything I felt something grab my hand. It had a grip like a very firm handshake and it literally woke me up out of a dead sleep. I actually got up and checked under the bed and nothing was there. It was very weird. Did you stay up with the light on rocking and sobbing in the corner the rest of the night? Seems like the only logical thing to do after that. Years ago my husband and I were lazing about watching a movie. Adverts came on and we weren't paying much attention. But just as one finished, we both recognized the place it was filmed. Pretty sure we had been there. Took a few seconds to find the remote and rewind. Still talking about our visit to the place on the advert. It wasn't there. We fast forwarded, thinking we missed it. Nothing. Rewound again. Nothing. My 3-year-old daughter walked up to my husband one night and straight up said, "Ossa grandpa's dead." Few moments later we get a call from my husband's sister saying that their father had passed away. Happened a few months back. Still creeps me out. Squirrel wearing a leaf cape. Edit. Thank you everyone. Also, yes, this was a real moment. IDK if maybe the leaf was stuck or if the leaves were somehow knotted. But it was so quick. Outside my bedroom window was a paddock. And one morning I saw a rabbit running across towards the woods behind the paddock. It was a minimum of 5 foot tall. Edit. A little more detail and response to some common theories. It was bigger than a Flemish. I know they can get over 4 feet when stretched. But this lad was closer to 5 while still all hunched up. I had been awake for over an hour so it wasn't a dream. My ex was with me and saw it as well. Same exact description as me. It was the brownish grey of a wild hare. Most rational explanation I can come up with, but still don't believe, is that it was a large grey kangaroo and was missing its tail. That would make it look more rabbit-like and could explain the way it moved. You saw the Easter bunny, my friend. Was driving home from work one afternoon with my brother and cousin in the car. As we were sitting in traffic I noticed high up in the sky and way out in the distance a small motionless black square. I pointed it out and both my brother and my cousin spotted it quickly, so I know it wasn't in my head. It just remained still for about 45 minutes and then the sun had set and it was too dark to spot it any longer. It just stayed in the exact same spot the whole time, and while it was really far away you could still tell it was a perfect square shape. Once I got home I went online to see if there were any mentions of it anywhere and there was nothing. To this day I still think about it and wonder WTF I was looking at. As a full-grown adult, I was telling my mother about this house I was in with a dream I had. It was brown, Had 2 bedrooms. 2 floors. L-shaped stairs. I went into full detail about this house from my dream. Anyway. Apparently the house I described was the house I was born in. Not like. Born. I was born in a hospital. But the house my family lived in for 2 years prior to my birth. That we all moved out of when I was 7 or 8 months old. At first I thought maybe my brain got it from pictures I had seen. But honestly the level of detail wasn't shown in any pictures we had of me at such a young age. Mostly they were close-ups. So you couldn't really see the background much. Best guess to this day is my brain picking up really old and obscure memories. Other than that I'm not sure how TF I knew anything about this house, let alone the layout, furniture setup, etc. I used to work nights. It was a fairly simple job and I was pretty much alone in an abandoned building. I was basically security to prevent people from coming in and clearing people out if there were any. Occasionally you'd get some teens hanging about. The odd homeless person or some YouTubers filming, but nothing out of the ordinary. I understand that the night and your brain can play tricks on you in the dark and when you're tired, but I don't know how to explain what I saw and I'm sure there is a logical explanation for it. I just went into a room. It was pretty much empty. I saw 3 shadows on the wall, but there was nothing to explain how the 3 human shadows were there. It was just really creepy and I got really bad vibes. So I just went out and I saw a very tall, slim, not of this world figure on the other end of the hallway. So that was me done. I know there's probably a reasonable explanation for it, but it was certainly unexplainable at the time. Went hiking late at night with my buddy when something big and bright flew right over us above the tree line. It was so bright we couldn't even look at it, and whatever it was, it didn't make a sound. Actually, it was probably the most quiet moment of my life. I remember saying "what the FCK?" but no sound came out of my mouth. Only lasted a few seconds and it was over. Probably a small meteor. You can look at videos of them online. They fit the description almost perfectly. Edit. Meteor. I was once standing in line at Target. A mother and her, I guess, 3-year-old were in front of me in the checkout lane. I never met them before in my life. The child was riding in the shopping cart and the mother went forward to better unload it. The child looks dead at me, smiles, laughs and said my first name. Very clearly. Twice. I have an uncommon first name. Which made it even stranger. Edit. No. He didn't have name tags. Just blank white keycards for entering locked areas. The dress code was strictly professional suit and tie. On weekends. I never was into being some company's walking billboard. That kid had Shinigami eyes. 4 Amish men in a room counting money with a money counter while simultaneously weighing out my ounce of weed. Just wasn't what I was expecting. I once saw someone who looked and dressed exactly like me. With my mannerisms and posture. Standing outside a pub I had visited only a week earlier around the same time in the evening. He was finishing a smoke and went back inside a few seconds after I'd been able to notice and get a good look at him. I smoked at the time as well. So it was something I'd have been doing. Not sure if I saw a glimpse of my own past from a third-person perspective or what. Or if I just have a twin somewhere in Dublin. My brother and I were watching a soccer game on the floor one summer when I see something in my peripheral vision under our couch. Imagine a beautiful translucent sea slug the color of an opal. Roughly an inch long. Undulating in midair in one spot. And it just vanished like it was never there. My brother saw it too. And we searched around to see if it was hiding or something. Never found a thing. Honestly, if it weren't for my brother, I'd just assume it was a hallucination or something. Edit. Interesting that people have mentioned migraines. I don't suffer from them, but my brother does, and he does see floaters. That said, he didn't get one till this year. Also, I was 19 and my brother 14 when this happened. So we weren't like 5-year-olds seeing weird shit.